All right, moving on to lesson 3 as we finish up this last full week before Christmas break. I'm getting excited, aren't you? We're on page 299 in our science book. Please turn there and follow along with me. This is kind of hard to see on your little computer screen. These pages are small on the digital version, so you'd have your book. You got one, might as well use it. It's right there in front of you. Page 299 is where you need to be. And today's question is, what are roles of organisms in ecosystems? I think we learned a word the other day called niche, didn't we? The roles that organisms play in their ecosystem. So let's talk about that today. Let's figure out what are those roles they play. What are their niches? Green machines. How would your day be different if you didn't need to stop and eat? Plants don't need to eat. They work to make their own food all day long. Plants make their food through a process called photosynthesis. Boy, we know all about that, don't we? During photosynthesis, plants use energy from the sun to change carbon dioxide and water into sugar and oxygen. Photosynthesis takes place in the leaves of plants. A substance in the leaves called chlorophyll captures energy from the sun during the day. Chlorophyll is what makes leaves appear green in color. It also helps plants make sugars, which the plants store in their stems, roots, and some plants in their leaves. Carbon dioxide is a gas that plants get from air. Plants take in carbon dioxide for photosynthesis and give off oxygen. This oxygen becomes part of the air. Plants that take in carbon dioxide This oxygen becomes part of the air that you breathe. These two gases move through small openings in the plant's leaves. So this is kind of a review. We already know everything that's on this page, or we should know everything that's on this page about photosynthesis. Plants make their own food. That's why, here goes the phone again. Okay, I'm going to turn this phone off here at school. It rings all the time. Well, we already know everything, as I was saying, about photosynthesis. And so plants are producers. They make their own food. You need to remember that they make their own food. That's important for today's lesson. And here's just a picture of photosynthesis. I don't know why that last chapter had questions about photosynthesis. It seems like this chapter is talking more about it. So carbon dioxide enters a plant through tiny holes in its leaves. Water from the soil enters the plant through its roots. Chloroplast inside cells found in leaves and other green parts of plants capture energy from the sunlight. Chlorophyll helps change carbon dioxide, water, and solar energy into sugar and oxygen. Some of the sugars are used right away by the plant for energy and growth. The rest are sent to other parts of the plant to be stored and used later. Okay, look at this picture down here. So let's see if we can figure out what it's asking. So start up here. What is captured from the sun? Sunlight's captured from the sun. And then what from the air enters through tiny holes? What goes into a plant during photosynthesis? It's carbon dioxide. And what goes in through the roots? Water. Those are the three things it needs: sunlight, carbon dioxide, water. And then what does it give off? Oxygen is released into the air, and sugars are produced in the leaves. We know about that. Eat your vegetables. Have you ever heard those words? You may think that you can live without plants, but even if you skip the spinach, you still depend on plants for food. All organisms need energy to live and grow. That energy comes from food. Producers, that's what plants are. They're organisms that make their own food. Plants are producers. Tiny plant-like organisms called phytoplankton that live in oceans and other bodies of water are also producers. Any kind of plant, whether it lives on land or water, is a producer. A hippopotamus is not a producer. He's not a plant, is he? He's a consumer. He eats plants. He's got big teeth, but they just eat plants. Organisms that cannot make their own food are called consumers. You're a consumer. You can't make your own food. You might make yourself scrambled eggs for breakfast, but your body can't make your own food. You can't go, okay, I'm going to grow a potato. You can't do that, can you? You're like plants do. You're a consumer. Consumers eat other living things in order to get the energy they need to live and grow. You say, I don't eat living things. Yes, you do. That cereal you had for breakfast was made from wheat or grains, which used to be a living thing on a plant. If you had some bacon, you ate something that used to be a pig. If you ate some broccoli, some fresh broccoli, well, that broccoli was alive. It was going, help, it's eating me. But you eat living things to grow. You're a consumer. Some consumers eat only plants. Some eat only animals. Others eat both plants and animals. No matter what kind of consumer an organism is, it cannot survive without producers. For example, mice and rabbits eat only plants. Hawks eat the mice and rabbits. If there were no plants, then the mice and rabbits would die, and the hawks that eat the mice and rabbits would also die. Living things depend on the food made by plants. So it all starts with producers. It starts with the plants. Unless you have a plant, you don't have anything else eating, because that smallest thing, as we're going to see in a food chain, eats the plants. Humans are consumers. Most people eat both producers and other consumers. So eat plants and animals, in other words. Most people eat plants and animals. Some people don't eat plant or animals. They're vegetarians. Squirrels are consumers that eat mostly producers. And remember, producers are plants. So which one of these are producers and consumers? A fish, he doesn't make his own food. He's not a plant, so he's a consumer. A deer is a consumer. It does not make its own food. It's not a plant. Barbie, or whatever that girl's name is right there, she's a consumer. She doesn't make her own food. She's not a plant. Wheat, it's a producer because it's a plant. It makes its own food. Strawberry, it's a producer. It's part of a plant. It does not make its own food. Corn is a producer. It does not. It makes its own food, rather. Okay, it's a plant. You are what you eat. Some people eat only foods made from plants. Others eat a mix of meat and plant foods. Just like people, different kinds of consumers eat different kinds of food. Consumers are classified into three main groups based on what they eat. Herbivores, you're going to need to know that word, eat only producers. They eat only plants. Herbivores are only plant eaters. Common herbivores are mice, rabbits, and deer. Pandas, koalas, elephants, and most insects, including butterflies, are also herbivores. Even though these are bears, they just eat plants. Elephants eat plants. Insects mostly eat plants. Meat-eating consumers are called carnivores. So herbivores eat plants, carnivores eat meat. When you think of a carnivore, you might think of a lion shown here, but not all carnivores are mammals. Penguins are birds that only eat fish. They don't eat plants. They live where there's not many plants. So they only eat other animals. They eat fish, so they're a carnivore. Ladybugs are beetles that eat other insects. Ladybugs are mean old carnivores. So lions are carnivores. The snake's a carnivore. He doesn't want a salad. He wants a nice juicy rabbit or something. Consumers that eat both plants and animals are called omnivores. Forest-dwelling box turtles, for example, eat strawberries, blackberries, and mushrooms, but they also eat insects and spiders. So they eat some plants, some living things, some animals, so they're omnivores. Carnivores and omnivores that hunt and eat other animals are also called predators. We know that, right? Something that hunts something to eat it is called a predator. The animal that predators hunt are called prey. The number of predators and prey are linked. As a predator population increases, it consumes more and more prey. Eventually, the predators consume so much prey that the animals become scarce. The predators have trouble finding food. Some predators move away, others die. With fewer predators to eat them, prey animals have a chance to increase in numbers again. So let's just use an example here. We'll just use this cheetah and the gazelle here, antelope, okay? So let's see, there's 10 cheetahs in an ecosystem, and there's 100 gazelles, okay? So that's 10 gazelles for each cheetah if we divide. But what if 25 more cheetahs moved into the area? Now there's 35 more cheetahs in the ecosystem for the 100 gazelle. Well, there's going to be a lot more predators, which means they're going to eat more prey, which means the antelope population is going to decrease. So there'll be less to eat. So some of the cheetahs are going to have to leave, or they're going to die because they don't have enough food. So that's how that works. And when more cheetahs leave, then there's less cheetahs eating the gazelle or antelope. So more antelope will be born and start growing. Those populations work off each other like that. break it down and clean it up. Just as garbage collectors remove the garbage people throw away, nature has its own cleanup crew. Have you ever thought about what happens to the bodies of dead plants and animals? When plants and animals die, some organisms in the environment eat them for food. These organisms are called scavengers. You need to know that. Scavengers eat dead plants and animals. Vultures are well-known scavengers. You've seen them flying in the sky, circling above, looking for something dead they can come down and eat. These birds are famous for eating the bodies of dead animals. You've probably seen them on the side of the road. Something got run over, and there's a bunch of vultures eating them. Some carnivores are also scavengers. Polar bears, sharks, and leopards both hunt for food and eat dead animals that they find. Scavengers play an important role in cleaning up the environment. It's an old millipede. Millipede are scavengers. They eat dead plant matter that they find in the soil. Crabs scavenge algae, fungus, and decaying matter from the ocean floor. Many vultures don't have feathers on their heads. This helps the birds keep clean when they stick their heads inside the dead animals they scavenge. Ugh. Scavengers aren't the only thing that clean up dead organisms. Decomposers, here's another word you need to know. Decomposers are organisms that break down or decompose. Break down or decompose. Lost my place. The waste and remains of dead organisms. This process returns nutrients to the soil, air, and water. Bacteria are microscopic decomposers that use chemicals called enzymes to break down the last remains of plants and animal waste. In so doing, they obtain the energy they need to carry out their life processes. Fungi are also decomposers that release enzymes. These enzymes break down dead matter, releasing nutrients that enrich the soil. So fungi, mushrooms, bacteria, they're decomposers. A starring role, why it matters. Every organism plays an important part in its ecosystem. Scientists study living things in their environment to better understand how these organisms relate to one another. Some species cannot survive if their habitat changes, even in small ways. Tiger salamanders, for example, live in wetlands. Scientists know that if the number of salamanders in a wetland goes down, it's a sign that the wetland has been polluted or is damaged. So scientists keep track of the number of animals in an area, and if the animals are increasing in population, then the ecosystem's doing well. But if a lot of them are dying, then there's a problem, they find out. Let's see, lost my place. Some species, such as the Bengal tiger of South Asia, are in danger of dying out. Governments work to protect these species as well as their habitats. When a species' habitat is protected, all the organisms within it are protected too. Kelp forests are rich ocean habitats where many fish have their young. Kelp forests are found throughout the world in cold, coastal waters. Protecting these forests help protect the organisms that depend on them. In the same way that protecting the animals that live in the kelp forest help protect the forest themselves. So animals that are in danger of dying out, endangered species is what they're called. They're protected by governments. For example, the bald eagle is our national bird. It's a protected animal. You may have been to Dollywood. You've seen where they help restore the bald eagles that have been hurt. It's one of the most popular places in the country that does that. Monarch butterflies, they migrate south to warm climates for the winter. Over their lifetime, monarchs live in many different ecosystems. Conservationists have worked to protect the areas where these insects live. Doing so also protects other organisms that share the same area with the monarchs. Sea turtles eat small animals they find floating in seaweed. Conservationists have focused on protecting sea turtles. That in turn helps protect both their habitats and the organisms that live there. Sea urchins feed on kelp. If there are too many urchins, they can completely destroy the forest. Sea otters eat sea urchins, and help keep beds healthy. So the animals help keep the environment safe too. All right, so some words you'll need to know today. You might want to work through these pages in your book. Omnivores eat plants and animals. Carnivores eat other animals, also called predators. Plants make food through photosynthesis. They're called producers. We got carnivores, omnivores, herbivores, or plant eaters. Make sure you know all these. Make sure you can get these words right here. You're going to see them on your quiz today, okay? All right. Hope you were a good listener. Go do your quiz. We'll do lesson 4 on Monday. Have a great weekend. We'll see you then.